Hey, before we get today's show going, I want to remind you to head over to ultimatedraftkit.com. People ask what separates the Ultimate Draft Kit from any other pre-draft tool to get you ready for the 2018 season. Let me tell you, not only does it have the things you come to expect from a tool like this, a printable cheat sheet and sortable rankings, all the different scoring systems, but what makes it different is it's filled with tools that you can't get anywhere else. 100-plus video profiles, consistency charts back for 2018 so you can look at which players delivered week in and week out versus those that were up and down. Risk ratings, a top 200 list, all of our blurbs for every single player. Dynasty rankings are here for 2018, not to mention Yahoo's Matt Harmon delivers his reception perception content, sleepers, breakouts, busts. The list goes on. This is our pride and joy. You got to check it out at ultimatedraftkit.com.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from Draft.com Studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Welcome in. Excited to be here, Andy, Mike, and Jason, the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, back once more. Oh, can you smell that? August is almost here.
I smell training camp.
Oh,
Smells like sweat.
smells like sweat and grass.
Does not smell good. This is bad news.
No, it doesn't.
We will, we've got a jam-packed show today, breaking down the NFC West. We've got Jerick McKinnon joining the program as well. And we'll talk about the Josh Gordon news that broke this morning.
May or may not be news. We will.
Nobody wants any sentence to start with. We'll talk about the Josh Gordon news.
If
there was no Josh Gordon news ever again, it would be too soon.
I feel like, some of the division rivals might want to hear that sentence.
Fair point.
Yeah, from the 0-16 Browns.
Right.
A lot of concern there.
There's a big threat.
Big threat going on.
The Steelers are worried.
Well, I believe in Hugh.
Mm-hmm.
NFC West on the show, like I said. A reminder, check out ultimatedraftkit.com. By the way, we'll be in Philadelphia and New York for 2 live shows this week, back-to-back, the 26th and the 27th.
Ooh. We are look, those shows are going to be awesome. We are discussing the 2018 biggest fantasy storylines of the year in Philly. And then in New York, we are going to be talking about our fire and ice players. So you're not going to want to miss those shows. Even if you can't make it to New York, those are coming up on the podcast. If you can make it to Philly or New York, you can see it live.
Perhaps a song
Of
fire. Well, I don't know.
Ice and fire. Don't get yourself.
A ballad.
A ballad.
Of ice and fire.
BallersLive.com for tickets. We'll also be in Phoenix August 24th. That'll be our final live show of this offseason, so you can join us out there. I believe we'll be talking about some bold predictions in that show, most likely.
I boldly predict that's what we will be talking about.
And one last point I wanted to bring up before we get into the quick question. I just wanted to remind people that if you want to practice drafting and get a grade from any of us, you can go to draft.thefantasyfootballers.com. There is a draft simulator. You can draft, you can get a grade, you can share it with us on Twitter. We can talk. It'll be fun.
People have been really loving those. I mean, the amount of Twitter posts of just like
I've been told I'm the Simon Cowell of the group.
The hardest to please.
Apparently.
I just tell people to draft better. When they're
Yeah.
like, "What, Mike? What's the low grade?" And I said, "Draft better."
Yeah. So everything that we update with our
Blame
rankings
yourself.
is how you get a grade. So our rankings are updated every day, and then you get a grade based off our current rankings. So quick question of the day. Name a player or situation that you'll be annoyed to talk about throughout the 2018 season. Guys, we're going to 5 days a week here in August. That's a lot of shows. What's going to annoy you about this season? What is your prediction there?
Yeah, for me, it's gonna be John Gruden all season long. We're gonna be talking about the overreaction will be there from everyone every week. He's either going to be the worst or the best. There's no he's just a coach doing a job, and sometimes he gets things right and sometimes he gets things wrong. It's either going to be look, you want to talk about fire and ice. that's going to be John Gruden's tale this year. Is he's the worst or the best? And I think it's going to annoy me because already those narratives are just like, let's just watch the Raiders and see what we have.
He's a big personality.
Yeah, I mean the worst.
There's going to be a lot of attention on him.
I'm on, man. I've changed my tune. I'm so ready for this ride with John Gruden. I think it's going to be.
This is what you're wanting the most.
Yeah, look, Oakland fans. I'm sorry what you're about to go through, but me personally,
you think it's going to be a mess.
I'm not saying
this is what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. You want to know why I don't? Is because
you love old people.
Well, sure, that doesn't.
You
hurt.
love old players.
I think he's smart. I think he's a smart guy, and I think he gets it right more often than not.
I think he is smart.
I think he has a motor that you need as a head coach in terms of getting
motor mouth.
Motor mouth as
got
well.
That. Micro Machine Man got his job taken.
I think he has a foundational quarterback that is good enough to win with, and I think that all those pieces put together mean that we'll see.
I would agree with everything said about John Gruden there, but the worst part about John Gruden and the thing that's going to get in his way is Greg Olson. If he had hired a legitimate –
Who's that again?
Greg Olson. I don't want him confused with the great Hall of Fame level tight end.
You know
Greg
who
Olson.
he hired? Scapegoat.
Yes, Greg Scapegoat Olson.
You got to line up a couple. No wonder Schottenheimer. Oh, look at Pete Carroll. He's setting it up.
No, of course. You want to talk about smart. Pete Carroll is setting it up. He's loading his lifeboat right now. All the food and supplies from the ship are on the lifeboat.
Here's what I'm going to be annoyed to talk about. I'm going to be annoyed trying to figure out what players I can stream in Dallas. It's going to change every week this season. It's going to be Hearns or Terrence Williams or Michael Gallup or Cole Beasley or Blake Jarwin or Tavon Austin. I don't want to figure that out every week because it's Zeke's show plus one player is probably going to give you a startable fantasy week. And I don't think, even if you like Hearns, Jason.
I do.
And I'm speaking only to you.
Yeah. According to average draft position, you are correct.
Even if you like him, I don't think you're going to get it from him every week. So reliability of Dallas pass-catching options is something that I'm not looking forward to dealing with because I think we're going to be rolling the dice more often than not.
I think you can say the same thing about Jacksonville. Hopefully someone from both of those situations, at least for fantasy players, is able to step up.
I think in Jacksonville, at least, you have unknown to a degree. I mean, I guess Gallup is unknown, so never mind.
Yeah. The thing I want to bring up is it's very specific, but it's the overreaction to the stud players who tank at the first week and possibly the second, because my timeline will be just absolutely full of people saying, I drafted him in the first round and he's giving me 2 bad games. I'm selling. I'm out.
There was either last year or the year before, we were very opposed to Matt Forte in the beginning or in the offseason, and he came out and had 2 incredible games to start the season.
That didn't look good.
And it did not feel good.
Well,
it changed.
For Forte.
It changed over the course of the season.
But my point is simply, when it's your stud and you drafted him in the first or the second, even you might have gotten, or not you, but all of us, we could have gotten that player wrong. But you got to give him more than 2 weeks. You can't spend that draft equity and then sell him for 50 cents on the dollar.
Yeah,
it's just not good
everybody's
fantasy.
so amped and they're just ready.
People were selling Lev Bell after week 1 last year.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, we did.
Whoops.
We got a lot of. I can trade Kareem Hunt right now for Le'Veon Bell,
and we said
after week 1. Yeah. Oh, yes. You had to.
It's hard to do though.
Yeah, it is. When you have the fire.
News and notes from around the league.
Sorry, Mike.
Apparently, we're done talking about that.
I took your pause as a period on the end of the sentence.
No, that's just how I speak.
Sorry.
Very choppy.
Let's talk about some news. David Johnson did not hold out of training camp, reported to training camp.
Excellent.
Currently suspended GM
Oh,
Steve Keim has said that he is looking forward to rewarding David Johnson, so maybe a sign of good faith by David Johnson. Maybe they've made some progress on an extension. either way, it's good news for David Johnson owners.
Certainly.
There was the rumors because he had his no-show or whatever it was for some OTAs or something.
Yeah, he didn't show up to OTAs.
And people started to get a little concerned. Is he going to show up for training camp? And we're good. We're good. David Johnson's here. He's ready to play.
If you look at the contract situation, there was no chance he's missing training camp because he is not a filthy rich man coming in from his contract. He's still on the rookie contract. He wasn't a first-round top half guy,
wasn't even a second
and he's going to
guy.
miss a lot of money if he misses training camp. So that's why he missed the OTAs. It was like, oh, okay, I can miss this one, and I'll be there for training camp.
I'm sure it hurt him to miss that.
Oh yeah,
Knowing him and his personality, that was like the
he's good people's.
he needed the spoonful of sugar to make the medicine go down from
Right.
his agent who said, look, you have to do this to send a message. He probably wanted to be there. Let's talk about Andrew Luck. A report came out that he will not be limited in training camp.
Well, the GM, well,
He won't be limited. No limitations. But we're not going to have him throw every day. I feel like that is a limitation, right? Is that not limiting him?
technically you're probably correct. But Chris Ballard has said Andrew Luck will be good to go for the start of training camp.
We're talking about real footballs, NFL-sized footballs.
The dude.
Hopefully. But
No, this is good news.
This is
really good
fantastic
news.
because last year it was they said all of this, and then all of a sudden he's not ready for training camp, and then he's not ready to start the year.
Which one of you two gentlemen has him ranked more in line with that you were going to adjust it later on with his health?
That would be me. Have
you done that?
I have not adjusted it yet. I've said from the get-go that I will not adjust him based on news, based on good news, based on anything other than
Watching him
play. So I've been, previously my line in the sand was preseason. I want to watch him in a preseason game and playing. But if he is a full active participant in training camp and full scrimmages, then I'll probably start to adjust him. But I am waiting for preseason. If they hold him out of preseason, I'm still scared.
All right, the big news this morning, I had a dentist appointment very early in the morning, and I'm not sure what was more painful, having my tooth drilled or getting a text from somebody in our league. And the first bit of news I had was, Josh Gordon. That's the text that came through.
Yes.
Because people didn't know what was happening. All they knew was that Josh Gordon had been placed on the non-football illness list by the Browns, was not at the beginning of training camp, and we know that with Josh Gordon, you tend to get afraid.
Yeah, it's a well-earned reputation at this point, unfortunately. And then the gasoline to the fire was NFL spokesman Brian McCarthy said, there's no timetable. We'll address the matter at the appropriate time, which
It just sounds menacing.
Here's the thing, Brian McCarthy. If you know what is going on with Josh Gordon and you know the history of Josh Gordon, you got to ease up on the language because of saying something, we'll address it at the appropriate time.
The NFL could care less about the perception of Josh Gordon. Nothing. They do not care one bit.
Clearly. They should.
The attitude is you bring those consequences from a PR perspective onto yourself by the decisions you've made. We don't care. We're going to do what we do.
Now,
but that's ridiculous because you have the potential redemption case here in Josh Gordon. The NFL should be nurturing.
Still. Yeah, no, you're right.
Yes, but then even in that case, in that situation, that can then backfire on you after you build the narrative. Here's the news that fantasy owners want to hear, though. Josh Gordon came out on his Twitter, spoke to this issue, said he is doing great both physically and mentally. This is part of his work, and according to a source from Adam Schefter, one of his sources, he said that Josh Gordon did not have any slip-ups, no failed tests. His leave is a proactive defensive gesture to get extra counseling and to try to ensure this does not have any of the setbacks that have marked his past. Those who know him say he has worked his booty off.
Good for you, Gordon.
Different word.
Good for you.
That's what Adam Schefter is reporting. I'm not worried. As a fantasy owner, if anything, that this could give
you
more.
Buying the dip?
Look, I'm anti-Josh Gordon from a fantasy football 2018 perspective, but I am pro Josh Gordon as a man, and I believe that he is doing the right thing right now. If I'm a fantasy dynasty owner, I am happy, if anything, that he is taking such active steps.
I know that there is so much more involved with the person and him being on the right path regardless of fantasy outcome, but there's a part of me that's like, if we don't get to see that man in that shape play on an NFL field, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
Like, you just want to see what can happen. Let's go ahead and let's jump into...
Before we jump in, we just want to thank today's sponsor, SeatGeek. You've heard us talking about them since the beginning of time, because SeatGeek is the only thing that you need to get tickets. They make buying tickets to sports and concerts easier than ever. It's the smartest, easiest, like I just said, smartest and easiest way to get the tickets for every type of live event. You could be searching last minute, planning the night out, find that perfect gift. It doesn't matter. SeatGeek can hook you up with the best seats, and the prices are...
Taking your boy to a game this year.
I 100% am taking my boy. I'm taking to his first Cardinal game. We are going to go to the Cardinals and the Broncos. He may be rooting for the Broncos. It makes me a little bit sad, but it doesn't matter because we're getting there, and I know I'm getting a good value on the tickets because I use the SeatGeek app. It's easy. Everything's color-coded. They do the shopping for you, and then they let you know, is this a good deal? Green means go, and that's where I go. I buy me some green tickets. I get the good deals. Right now, our listeners can get $20 off their first SeatGeek purchase. Just download the SeatGeek app. Enter the promo code FOOTBALLERS today. That's promo code FOOTBALLERS for $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase. Grab that app right now.
Yeah, and hey, Foot Clan, we want to make sure you know from time to time we do a big giveaway. It's completely free. This is us trying to give back. Check out footclangiveaway.com. We're giving away a signed Keenan Allen jersey, a signed Stephon Diggs jersey, a signed DeAndre Hopkins mini helmet. You can go, enter for free, and check it out at footclangiveaway.com. We really appreciate you guys, and go get your stuff.
Let's get divisional.
All right, if you missed the show from Saturday, you've missed the AFC West. We talked to Melvin Gordon.
It's gone.
Actually, we took it down.
You can still listen. No, guys.
Oh,
really?
We left it up this time.
Whew.
You can still listen.
It's pretty nice of us.
We talked through the AFC West, talked to Melvin Gordon on the show. Today we are in the NFC West, a division in which the Los Angeles Rams awoke from a long and dreary slumber to the tune of 478 points scored, which I believe was number one in the league.
It was.
And they were 11-5, won the division, and absolutely, I don't know, did it speak more to Sean McVay or more to the lack of talent in Jeff Fisher, which that sounded like a sneeze.
You have to credit Sean McVay.
100%. Yes, I mean, you if you score first, it's a credit to who is there. It's McVay, but don't you think there's a little bit of like karma buildup for the years of Jeff Fisher dragging you down?
112. Yeah, that's
like a slingshot power
that goes the other direction. Like the freedom, the chains fell off.
Exactly.
112 points
Sean
scored,
McVay, breaker of chains,
above the Seahawks, who were second in the division, and yet they gave up 3 fewer points than the Seahawks. They were absolutely great last year.
Yeah, dominant.
Jared Goff was a competent to good starting quarterback in fantasy. He was streamable. He was startable. Last year they were led by Todd Gurley. We all know this story. You were led by Todd Gurley. If you won a title, a lot of your teams had Todd Gurley on it because he was dominant during weeks 15 and 16 of the regular season and your fantasy playoffs. So what are we expecting from the Rams this year? They have let go of Sammy Watkins. They let him go sign a big-time deal with the Chiefs. Watkins was a player that, while he scored, wasn't heavily involved in the offense. You had more of an impact from Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp on a week-to-week basis. Certainly Todd Gurley in the passing game. So this year they add Brandon Cooks. They sign him to the big-time deal. They're the defending champs of the division. And now we're talking fantasy impact. Is this a team, because they've added other pieces on defense especially?
That's the big upgrade for them.
How does that translate for our fantasy prognostication here? Their defense should be great. On paper, it's great. We've been down that road before with Philadelphia a few years back where it didn't translate to production. But, look, on paper, they're the favorites.
Yeah, I mean, they are the favorites in the division for sure. I would say this. Anytime that you have a team that is the number one scoring team that does not have a super Hall of Famer, a Peyton Manning type guy leading the charge, there is, at the very least, there is statistical and historical data to say regression could come, right? I mean,
sure.
if it doesn't come, you're saying that this is going to be the number one offense 2 years in a row, led by Jared Goff, and I would bet against that. That's not saying that they're going to be a bad offense by any means, but it is saying that I don't think you can bank on what we saw last year from Jared Goff. A lot of his touchdowns were outside breakaway touchdowns that weren't him just targeting the right guy in the end zone. Todd Gurley was 6, receiving touchdowns taken to the house.
Yards per game, they were 8th. Passing yards per game, they were 10th. So from a overall yardage perspective, they were simply efficient in scoring.
Right.
In all capacities, to add to your point.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So is Todd Gurley worth that number 1 pick, number 2 pick? Absolutely. Do I think he's putting up 20 touchdowns again this season? No. I do not. I think that there will be scoring regression, especially, look, the defense is going to be better.
But that can help a running back.
That can help a running back, but it means that the team can slow the clock down, have fewer plays, doesn't need to score as much as a whole. And for fantasy purposes, that just means more doubtful to finish, near the number 1 spot in the league in scoring.
Yeah, I think I buy some of that. I don't think Sean McVay's the kind of guy who's going to sit back.
Yeah,
I don't think that's the kind of
either.
offense he runs. So I don't expect him to say, okay, we picked up Ndamukong Suh and other defensive weapons, so we're just going to sit back here and not try to score. They put up points for a reason last year, much like the Falcons in what you talked about last year. Regression is in the cards for them, so I understand all of that. Brandon Cooks. Differing opinions in this office about Brandon Cooks. I'm a big Brandon Cooks fan. I know we've adjusted him a little bit, but if you had to put your money on one of these 3 guys, Cooks, Woods, Kupp, leading the way fantasy points, who do you want on your roster?
If I have to put my money on it, then I'm going to go with Brandon Cooks, the guy that they have paid to be their wide receiver 1. But Cooper Kupp, I talked about him back on our early sleeper show. He's one of my favorite of that later round type of wide receiver. He's a big slot player. And you take Sammy Watkins out of the equation. Sammy Watkins was a red zone nightmare for teams, and Brandon Cooks simply is not that player. It doesn't that part of his game all of a sudden elevate now that he's playing with Jared Goff. That would be a very interesting turn of events. So there's a lot of touchdowns that could go Cooper Kupp's way. He's very interesting to me. The addition of Brandon Cooks sinks the ship a little bit for Robert Woods, unfortunately, who had his own little, somewhat of a breakout this past season. But Jay, so for Jared Goff, you talked about, yes, he had a lot of line of scrimmage, beyond or behind the line of scrimmage type of touchdowns, but now you had Brandon Cooks who gives you those big plays. Do you feel like that's a positive movement for Jared Goff, or is that because of what he was able to accomplish last year, is this just a wash?
No, I think it's definitely a positive thing for Jared Goff. I'm not expecting Jared Goff to fall off and be, the 26th best tight end, but right now he's being drafted.
I wouldn't expect him to play tight end at all this year.
Quarterback, but
you actually have him at 21. You have him at 21. Mike's at 13. I'm at 14.
Yeah, and
I got him at 13.
You do.
There you go. He's being drafted.
You've got him ahead of Matt Ryan.
Oftentimes he is being drafted ahead of even that. I've seen him as basically a top 10
Jimmy G
type guy. I do think Cooks helps Goff, but if you look at, Cooks will maybe get more yards for Goff than Watkins did, but Watkins was that red zone guy.
You could have made the same argument for Watkins as a deep threat, and he didn't do it.
Sure, but I'm saying the touchdowns also go away for going from Watkins. Andy, to speak to your question, if I had to bet my house on who's the most productive fantasy option, I would also bet on Cooks as their big money guy. However,
We're very bold here.
he is not the guy that I would be drafting. I do not like his draft price going in the 4th round of a team where if at the end of the year Cooper Kupp leads the way, or Robert Woods leads the way, or Cooks leads the way, none of us are going to be surprised. So in that situation, I'm taking Robert Woods, the guy who's going in the 9th round, who was actually the most valuable guy last year for a stretch before he got injured, on this team who now is not going to face number 1 coverage. Cooks is getting the number 1 coverage. You've got Patrick Peterson. You've got, good guys in the division. Yeah, I like Robert Woods the best from a draft cost.
My only play here for the Los Angeles Rams to Sean McVay is Gerald Everett, tight end. He's on your team. Mount Everett, please get him going. He is an absolute monster of a man. If you start game scripting for him, I think he will dominate.
One final point, their offensive line last year was ranked, was it 10th?
What, the end of season?
Season in ranked
6th.
Was 6th.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. That's another one of those foundational things for a guy like Gurley. We've seen it in Dallas with Zeke. When your offensive line is ranked highly, you have a better chance of repeating that kind of success out of the backfield.
Seahawks.
All right, let's talk about the Seattle Seahawks. I don't think there's a ton of excitement that I've garnered from their fan base over the course of this offseason. The defense has been blown up. Richard Sherman is gone. Cam Chancellor has retired. Extensive rumors about his name's escaping me. It's their safety.
It's escaping me now, too, that you put me on the spot.
Earl Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you.
And they also traded
In my head, I'm like,
Dallas.
His name is definitely not Earl Watson.
No.
But we got there. We did it. Teamwork.
Earl Thomas, potential Dallas connection there. So the defense is struggling. You've lost some
Big
weapons
Earl.
on offense. Paul Richardson, Jimmy Graham are gone.
Michael Bennett as well traded.
Yeah. Michael Bennett traded away to the Philadelphia Eagles. Last year, the Seahawks were 9-7. They've brought in Brian Schottenheimer as the offensive coordinator.
Oh,
I think we need that. Bum, 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 bum.
Is that the official?
Yeah, that. Oh, welcome to the team, Brian Schottenheimer. Run that ball.
So we have a lot of things that we can talk about with Seattle. One thing we know is that Russell Wilson, when he plays quarterback, is a fantasy force. He was again last year. You also have to say, okay, how does he become that force? It's with the weapons that he has on the outside. Doug Baldwin, I've seen Evan Silva specifically, has Doug Baldwin having a monstrous year. Very possible. Tyler Lockett, Jerron Brown, Brandon Marshall, the only other pass-catching options outside. No more Jimmy Graham in the red zone. They spent a high pick on Rashad Penny. They still have Chris Carson in the backfield. Where do you want to break down this roster?
Yeah, I mean, they are shifting to a run-first team. This is the big off-season hype. It's seen by what they've done. You follow the money. They drafted a first-round running back in Rashad Penny. They hired Brian Schottenheimer, notorious for being a I-run-the-ball guy. He's a Rex Ryan.
No matter what you do, I'm running.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm running.
That's not his normal voice, but if you watch some of the videos of him in the locker room, it's ridiculous. All he cares about is I'm going to run the ball. And when they stack the box against the run, we're going to run it. And we're going to run it. And then when they know that it's a running down, I want to run it through them. It's kind of like this is how he's going to motivate his players to just be hardcore and smash mouth. But it doesn't work in today's NFL, and it certainly doesn't work with one of the worst offensive lines in the league. So while I have an absolute love affair with Rashad Penny's talent from college, this offensive line, it's going to be difficult to run the ball when the other team knows you want to run, you don't have a good offensive line, and then the Chris Carson, Rashad Penny situation. I'm cooling a little bit on just the Seahawks run game.
Yeah, and as am I. And I think people need to understand right now the expectation is that Chris Carson is going to begin camp as the running back one. Rashad Penny has to make strides by way of pass protection, scheme, all of those elements. It's probably going to be a timeshare on a team that Pro Football Focus has ranked the 30th best offensive line in football after finishing 27th
Can you
last
say
year.
30th best when it's 30th?
Is that what I said?
Yeah. 30 out of 32.
That is correct.
I know it's
it is 30th best, but it's 30 out of 32.
Now, Brooks, I know you believe Brandon Marshall is a top 10 guy this year. Why is that?
Good question.
I'm struggling to remember why I think that.
No, Brandon Marshall, does he have any opportunity here?
He's done. We haven't seen anything good from Brandon Marshall in several years. He's coming off of multiple injuries. I just will be shocked if I will be blown away if he becomes a normal, regular fantasy asset. I'll put that on record.
I completely agree.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
But the potential of the one of the big questions for the Seahawks, who's replacing Jimmy Graham? Who's replacing all those touchdowns? If Brandon Marshall morphed into the stats, I mean, like Mighty Morphin style of taking Jimmy Graham's stats from last year, he's got to make the team first, but just say that's actually in the realm of possibilities. Very, very low percentage, but we're trying to cover all angles here.
Well, Tyler Lockett's not going to be that. He's not going to be that role. They added Ed Dixon at the tight end position. If I had to pick between Dixon and Vannett, it'd be Dixon by a long shot if I have to roll out a tight end for me.
And it's still Vannett.
Oh my gosh. I don't even know how you can possibly think it's Vannett. Vannett is a slow, plodding, low-end tight end pick that they've never said. I mean, it's Ed Dixon by 10 miles.
He was a third-round pick.
Yeah, to the shock of everyone.
to the team that took him, like as in they wrote it in. They went, oh crap, it's the third round.
Now I think that there are some that, I mean, this has been very negatively focused. This entire coverage of the Seahawks, where they were a 9-17.
Let's get to Doug Baldwin then.
And yeah, we love Doug Baldwin. We love Russell Wilson. I think we believe in their opportunity. There is a world where this defense, because it takes a step back. This is not the Legion of Boom anymore. More opportunity.
Legion of Gloom, am I right?
More opportunity for Russell Wilson to potentially lead the NFL from a fantasy production standpoint.
Yes.
I can see that happening. If you are forced, look, it's one thing to say you want to get back to your running ways. You don't have Marshawn Lynch anymore. You have a terrible offensive line, and you have at this time with Penny and Carson, you don't have the force that you used to have. Maybe you're going to get it. But if you're losing games, you can't run. We saw this with Cleveland. Hugh Jackson said, oh, boy, we're just going to run until you're down 3 scores in the third quarter. So does Russell Wilson have a sneaky opportunity to be one of those, not just a top 3 quarterback, but a league-winning quarterback? We saw that from Brady many years ago. We saw that from Peyton Manning many years ago. There are quarterbacks that put up numbers so significant, and with his ground ability, could he win your league? Is there a world where you see that happening?
Yes, I do. There is a world where that could possibly happen. If he gives you another 500 yards on the ground and he leads the league in touchdowns, and they keep doing where last year it was Russell Wilson just started playing the game of 500, where everyone would streak down the field play after play after play, and eventually they would hit, which was part of the success for him. He's a stud. He's a stud fantasy quarterback. I want to go get to Doug Baldwin, who I talked about Brandon Marshall taking the Jimmy Graham stats. Where I'm actually projecting those is Doug Baldwin. When Doug Baldwin was dominant for that second half of the year stretch, that's because Jimmy Graham was doing nothing, right? And was that, now am I remembering right, was that the year that Jimmy Graham got hurt and for missing the second half of the year?
Yeah, because it was multiple years. I believe his breakout came before Jimmy Graham was on the team. The second half, he was,
my timeline
over the last several years, Doug Baldwin is up in the league leaders in touchdowns. He has a great rapport, both in and out of the red zone with Russell Wilson. So
I was very correct. It was 2015. That's when Jimmy Graham played 11 games for the Seahawks, and that's when Doug Baldwin went full ham and had his 14 touchdowns. Yeah. So I'm with Evan. I'm with Silva that Doug Baldwin needs to be respected for fantasy football this year.
And if Russell Wilson does end up as one of those league winners, then you will necessarily have some kind of breakout from either Tyler Lockett or Jaron Brown.
It's 14th round, Lockett, Brown, Marshall,
I'm taking Tyler Lockett.
I agree.
I'm going to take the guy that's been in the system that we've seen, albeit in short, healthy bursts, perform well last year.
Is that how you would define it?
That's exactly how I would
Do you feel
define
like
it.
he has performed well?
In
Are you
short,
defining that in terms of fantasy production?
Yes.
he's when he's going, he is an incredible player.
All right, let's move on.
Cardinals.
All right, the Cardinals were 8-8 last year. A lot of turnover in this offense. Carson Palmer retired. Bruce Arians is gone. Steve Wilkes took over. Mike McCoy is the new offensive coordinator. You have Bradford and Rosen at the quarterback position.
Hey, don't forget about Mike Glennon.
You have Bradford and Rosen at quarterback.
Key additions.
And then David Johnson returns to the Arizona Cardinals this season after the injury that knocked out all of last year. And it's the Larry Fitzgerald show at the wide receiver course. So I think the big questions around this offense is who's going to be playing quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals this season. Who outside of Larry Fitzgerald is going to offer you any value? This could be very similar to Dallas, where you don't really know who to buy into on a week-to-week basis because Chad Williams, J.J. Nelson, Christian Kirk, and Bryce Butler are options there. And then you have some sneaky sleeper options, Ricky Seals-Jones at tight end. Where are you guys putting your focus when you watch the Cardinals this year? It's a difficult division. They have one of the harder schedules in football. I don't think we're expecting them to be a playoff team, but
Now, Vegas has them projected for the lowest win total, tied with the Browns. Because you have a new scheme on both sides of the ball, along with a new quarterback, I think it could end up being rough sledding. As far as where I'm looking, watching, definitely in camp and in preseason, it is the number 2 wide receiver. There could be value there, and if Chad Williams steps forward, I think that would be the best case scenario because, he has the skill set. Like J.J. Nelson is who I've got right now slotted in as the number 2 guy. And we know his upside, which is not much. So I think if a Bryce Butler or a Chad Williams could take over that role, then I think they could outperform J.J. Nelson and of course, Christian Kirk.
let me illustrate something here. Mike, who's the number 2 to you?
Chad Williams.
Jason, who's the number 2 to you? You just
J.J.
said,
Nelson right now.
and I think it's Bryce Butler.
Exactly.
That's not good.
So that's and none of those.
Not good for fantasy.
Let's take the number 1. Larry!
As you say, and none of those is the highest upside of all, which is Christian Kirk, right? Christian Kirk drafted to be a kind of a PPR guy in this offense, a big play guy in this offense, but not yet.
Right.
Not yet.
He is so, in college he was so predominantly in the slot. When I spoke to him at the NFFC, I asked him, where does he think he is best? Where does he perform best? Was it inside or outside? And he started that by saying inside, and then quickly was like, and outside. But he knows he is a slot guy. He's learning from the best. I love his prospects long-term with Rosen, Dynasty League, love it. This year, Larry is manning that slot, and the slot is going to be valuable because, first of all, if Sam Bradford could stay healthy, Sam Bradford loves the short slot passes.
Yeah.
He is his accuracy in that area is,
Possibly the best in football.
right. Exactly. I mean, I believe he got the record a couple of years ago.
He had the most accurate season before Drew Brees took it back last year.
Right. So, that's why Larry Fitzgerald is locked in as, a perfect option. I will say this.
What about Gary Fitzgerald?
If injuries happen to everyone, over the course of life in football, and Larry is old, if something were to happen to Larry, I hate to speak it, Christian Kirk would be a super valuable slot guy and take over that number 1 role.
This was a bad offensive line last season. They ended 31st in the league.
31st best.
They're projected to be 27th best, as we say.
Well, they added
And the thing
pieces.
is David Johnson didn't have to battle all last year with that situation. They did add pieces, but right now, at least, Pro Football Focus doesn't see that translating into a highly ranked offensive line. The attraction for David Johnson is pass catching and volume. He is the offense, right? He is him and Larry right now look like the offense. And while Sam Bradford, we can joke as much as we want about, or make light of the fact he's never healthy for fantasy purposes. if he's on the field and David Johnson's on the field, Larry Fitzgerald's on the field, there is some sneaky upside to this offense while those three stay on the grass.
100%.
Fair. Any other points you guys want to mention about the Cardinals?
Just real quick on Ricky Seals-Jones. This is he is, I think, a pretty in vogue sleeper pick at the tight end position, and for good reason. I mean, an athletic monster.
He was a former wide receiver.
Right. He should have an opportunity here with Jermaine Gresham getting hurt right at the end of last year. I don't think that we expect him to be ready for training camp. So can Seals-Jones build a case? They were talking him up earlier, so he's a guy that later on, if you punt at the tight end position, flashed with some huge big plays this past season. I think he's worth taking the shot on.
49ers.
All right, guys, the 49ers were 6-10 last season, but it didn't feel that way because of all the hope that Jimmy G brought this roster, finishing the year the way he did. Jimmy Garoppolo now takes the reins. Free agent acquisition, Jerick McKinnon at the running back position. You drafted Dante Pettis, second round, right? And you have some opportunity here, a lot of upside here. Still a difficult division, right? You're playing a division that should have at least stalwarts on the defensive side in the Rams, and the Cardinals' defense will be upper half. And Seattle may very well be there too. They have some pieces. I know that we talk about the big names leaving, but they do have some pieces. So does Jimmy Garoppolo continue in the vein that he finished last season, getting Pierre Garçon back, having a weapon like McKinnon out of the backfield? Where do you see this hype going with Jimmy G? Because I can see it leaving people a little bit disappointed.
Yes, I certainly can see it being disappointed, but that's a more of a case of the actual draft costs. I mean, people, we love as fantasy players to latch on to the final quarter of the NFL season, and when people make a big impression like Jimmy Garoppolo did, which he was very impressive, to be fair to Jimmy G, very handsome, came in to this team that was doing nothing and won a whole bunch of games. It didn't translate to dominant fantasy success, but that's simply because the touchdowns were not coming. The yardage was there, and for that amount of yardage, the touchdowns, they're going to follow. But you're paying so much for him. And like right now,
where's his current average draft position, Mike?
Right now, it doesn't sound very high if you say, oh, he's going in the 9th round. But then you have to take a look.
Yeah, who's around him? Who are you choosing him over?
You are choosing him over Stafford, Ryan, currently Andrew Luck, Phillip Rivers, Roethlisberger.
I don't have a huge
I wouldn't
problem.
take him over any of those players.
I don't have a huge problem with people taking him over those players in the sense that you know what Stafford is, you know what Rivers are. They're quality players. I like both of them. I would take them personally, but with Garoppolo, when you're taking that shot in the 9th round,
the unknown
of him saying, hey, maybe he comes in and it does light the world on fire. Year 2 in a Kyle Shanahan system, or year 1.5.
Right.
In that system, that's when Matt Ryan took that huge step forward. If you look at his 16-game pace, he was almost on pace for 5,000 yards, 4,934 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 16 interceptions, which is not a good – it's a very
bad ratio.
But you also had injuries, and you didn't have a lot of weapons. You didn't have Pierre Garçon. Marquise Goodwin became your number one target, and he's really a field stretching. He's not a guy that can be the number one target. I love Dante Pettis being added to this team. Vegas, surprisingly, I was really surprised to see that their win total opened up. Do you guys know what their win total opened up?
I do not.
Take a guess.
7.
Okay, that's a good guess.
7.
9.
Ooh.
I was like, wow. So part of that is because of the public, the 5-0 Jimmy G, and trying to fight against that. But part of that might be belief in Garoppolo, who I think reports came out today about how him and Brady hated each other, and he believed he was better than Brady, and so we'll see. But I don't have a problem taking the shot, the swing to say, hey, if this guy is like a top 3 type, great. Otherwise, stream the position.
Before we talk to him, let's talk about him. Let's talk about Jerick McKinnon.
Let's talk about him.
I mean, Jerick McKinnon is that spark freak, right? 99th percentile in the bench press at the running back position. He burst off the charts when it came to his combine numbers and all the promise that he had. His best comparable player is LaDainian Tomlinson, the multi-tool skill set. And obviously Kyle Shanahan said, I didn't hear what you just said.
Oh, I thought you were done. I was just going to say I am bought in. I'm sorry. I'm bought in on
I feel like
on
you
Jerick
were
McKinnon.
hesitant.
No,
I've watched over the course of the offseason you slowly come around. I didn't realize that we have reached the point where it's a full – this is a Jason stamp of approval.
Yeah,
Maybe more than that.
Yeah, I mean, truly
Jason smooch of approval.
Sounds like a My Guy candidate to me.
he is certainly in the My Guy realm. I know
All
a
right.
lot of fantasy analysts, they look at where he's being drafted and they say he's risky because he hasn't done it, and he's being drafted
He may not hold up
back
physically.
of the second. And that's the big issue is whether or not he'll hold up, right? But if you look at what his competition is, what his talent physically is, what his team and Kyle Shanahan's system is. I mean, Steve Slayton. You guys remember Steve Slayton?
Yep.
And his 1,659 all-purpose yards? This guy who was, I think, 5'9", 209, same size as Devonta Freeman, who is obviously great. That's a Kyle Shanahan system. I mean, Roy Halou. Hello. Roy Halou in his rookie year had over 1,000 all-purpose yards for that system. And I believe Jerick McKinnon,
If he's healthy, you don't see a way he doesn't deliver.
Exactly. If he's healthy, he's going to deliver. He's going to be, a top 12 running back in my opinion. Now the health is partly an issue, but he's not an injury-prone guy. And if you look at those Spark Freak scores, he's
unbelievable.
his body is built.
They're exciting. Those numbers are exciting. It's the targets from Kyle Shanahan's system that are
Mike,
exciting for me. Yes.
Is this a better team today with Jerick McKinnon than Carlos Hyde?
Yes, because he fits the scheme better. Before we move on, I want to at least talk about the wide receivers for a little bit. I like Pierre Garçon quite a lot this season. We mentioned Marquise Goodwin. He flashed. He had some big games when he was
Played well. Played above.
He was rewarded with a big
above what we
with a
expected.
big contract. I want people do not sleep on Pierre Garçon. He was on pace for 1,000 yards. He
just doesn't score. That's the problem with
Yes.
Pierre Garçon. He never scores.
And we don't have any proof of concept of him playing with the handsome one. So I get that there's some people are concerned about it. And the final name I want to throw out here.
When's the last time Mike mentioned Jimmy Garoppolo without how handsome he is?
It's never happened.
Has it ever?
No,
Have you
of
ever
course
said
not.
Jimmy G by itself?
Have you looked at him? Handsome fella. Here's the thing. Here's the name I want to remind people about because I'm with Jason that Dante Pettis is intriguing. However, Trent Taylor is their slot wide receiver.
Yes.
You can roll your head all you want, Jason. Trent Taylor
He's good.
What's his career high game in yards?
Probably like 60 yards.
career
I doubt
high?
it. I doubt it.
6 for 92.
Okay.
You can shut your mouth.
All right.
Trent Taylor is a good player.
Yeah, he's flashed. He's better than Beasley.
Yes. And Pettis, at this point, Pettis would have to take his job. Pierre Garçon's not the slot player. It is Trent Taylor. And over the second half of the season, he did have a couple big is not the right word, a couple usable fantasy weeks.
Yeah.
So just pay attention to how rapport is being talked about by beat reporters if the name Trent Taylor comes up.
Man,
Garçon should sap the value of Trent Taylor. Well,
He could.
I'm
He
so
could.
upset because I'm looking at his game logs and he does. He's got that 6 for 92 game, but then his next highest on the season was 47 yards. So you win some, you lose some. But George Kittle is a name that
yes.
we have
Thank you,
not
Jason.
we have not shared a lot of love for Kittle on this show.
I feel like you guys started there. I don't buy into Kittle whatsoever.
I don't buy in much, but the one place that I do buy in is the fact that you brought it up. Pierre Garçon, he does not score touchdowns. Marquise Goodwin is not a red zone type of touchdown scorer. Trent Taylor is not the red zone. You know, when he gets down in that red zone, and this is part of why I like Jerick McKinnon, but I feel like Kittle is the best red zone threat for this team. And so it is a name worth
As is
mentioning.
Garrett Selleck as
Yeah.
well.
Yes,
I will make
yes.
a water bet, Mike, with you right now that
Kittle versus Selleck
that Kittle doesn't finish in the top 15.
in the top 15.
Yes.
I'll take it.
Water bet.
I feel like it has been so long, and there are so many new listeners that I need to explain what a water bet is.
Yeah.
Nope. Just let it be. Just let it ride.
When we make water bets, it's simple. I win them.
That's
and then,
what it is.
And then when I win them, Mike has to spin the wheel on the Wheel of Water app, and then I get to pour water on him in one of a variety of ways. We made this app 3 years ago.
It's completely free. You can
It's
get it
free.
at wheelofwater.com.
And please send us pictures of you watering your friends this year.
It's very
It brings
fun.
us a lot of joy during the season. All right, without further ado, let's stay in San Francisco. Let's talk to Jerick McKinnon.
You talking to me?
Okay, so Jerick McKinnon, the fantasy footballers are very high. We are very bullish on you this year. We are fully bought in that you are going to be a great fantasy running back this season. There are some people out there that believe that your frame is maybe not going to be able to hold up with a huge workload. What would you say to those idiots?
Just don't draft me. Draft me, and don't be mad when you lose and I'm on somebody else's team.
Yeah, that is sage advice. First of all, congratulations on the contract. Nobody improved their draft stock in fantasy more than you did, and you improved your situation. Great. I mean, congrats on that huge contract. When you were talking earlier about the proof was in the pudding, when different teams were interested, and that you looked at the coaching staff and thought that the fit was there. Can you talk us through that? Like, what were you and your team looking at to make the decision to go to San Francisco?
For me, free agency, what I do, what I bring to the table, I'm pretty sure all the teams that were interested in me were going to find a way to utilize me the same way within their scheme. But for me, like I said, when I mean proof in the pudding, Coach Shanahan, when he was in Washington, Alfred Morris had that great season. In Atlanta, Tevin Coleman, Devontae, I came out with Devontae, and I seen, how he flourished in the system. And, the facts was right there. Devontae's been to how many Pro Bowls since he's been in the league? He got a big contract. So, that itself was enough for me, and just looking at the yardage and how he using what he was able to do with him and stuff like that, and then of course having Coach Bobby Turner on the staff as well, a lot of wisdom. He coached a lot of great running backs, Terrell Davis, Hall of Famers. So everything was just right, and everything worked out on the business end of the deal. Yeah. I'm grateful for that, but most importantly, I'm grateful for the opportunity that it was presented, and I just can't ask for a better situation.
That's awesome. Now, the opportunity that is presented, were they talking to you about workload, about volume, about being the main primary guy? Was that part of that opportunity discussed?
I wasn't really doing any talking. I was more of my agent. You're not allowed to talk to him, so I was just kind of getting feedback through my agent. But when somebody throw you an offer or a deal for that much, it's obvious what their intentions are. So I didn't need to hear it. It was already there with that. So.
Yeah, that's exactly what we say. We say follow the money. The team speaks with the money. If they're giving you that, they believe in you the way that we believe in you. So that's awesome. Here's a really important question. How in the world did you put up 32 reps on the bench press at the combine? That's unbelievable. What is your secret to being so strong?
That boy's strong.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
I love the weight room. I'm a small guy, but I like to play bigger than my stature says I am on paper. So, I spend a lot of time in the weight room, physically building my body, because I don't like to shy away from contact and, none of that. So, when it's time to kick off, you're going to get 100% of Jerick McKinnon. So, for me, being in the weight room and building my body is key because, every week, I'm running into, brick wall, play after play after play. And, I'm having fun doing this. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. And good luck to you this season.
All right, Jason, did you enjoy talking to Jerick McKinnon? Did you feel intimidated by the biceps? That's the real question.
Well, look, he said it. The boy's strong.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed being with him, not just in that interview, but the rest of the conference and some of the stuff that he was talking about. I think that he is going to succeed.
Guy.
Maybe we'll see. We're still a little ways away from the my guys, but he is absolutely in consideration.
All right, that'll do it for today's episode of the podcast. Make sure you check out ballerslive.com if you want a chance to grab tickets to Philadelphia and New York this week. Those shows are coming up. They're a couple days away, Thursday and Friday. If you're anywhere in the vicinity, we don't want you to be filled with regret.
Oh, no regrets.
It's like the waiver pickup you didn't spin the fab on.
Yeah.
Don't make that mistake. Come and see us. We're going to hang out after the show as long as humanly possible.
And you don't want the Minneapolis regrets either of, oh, no, the show sold out.
And for what it's worth, all of you out there in Philadelphia, this tour hasn't been kind to you because we've gone through Minneapolis and Dallas.
They're not big fans.
They're not big fans. So you got to represent out there in Philly. So check out draft.com/ballers as well.
Yeah,
if you wanna
play that
some
best ball.
That's right.
And we will see you on Thursday.
Yes, sir.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.